Okay, we are live and kicking. This is a late night stream for those of y'all that can't sleep. Let's talk business. All right, so tonight we are going to cover some of the strategies that Spotify used to dominate the audio world. Listen, as much as I am an Apple user, I use Apple Music. Spotify is at the top, right? They are dominating. Now, this particular case study, I'm going to share this with you. This particular case study is actually from 2020. And a lot of the research that I've come across around the pandemic time is where a lot of it kind of stops around 2020. Of course, there's a little bit more research, but this stuff is meaty enough. So what I want us to do is I want us to take a look at this case study right quick, and then start putting some names. Maybe if I can find some of the faces, put some of the faces to the strategy. All right. So let me see here. I'm gonna share my screen right quick with y'all. Give me 1 second here. Let's see. All right. Okay. So this, as I mentioned, this is from Jake Rosser. So he has a letter that he created. Look how long this is, y'all. This is an in-depth case study. Now, we're not going to go through all of this tonight, right? But I'm going to pick out some of the most important parts for you so that you can take a look at this. And then what would be really cool is if we can take this information and then we can focus on, how does that apply to you personally? All right. So I always want to try to do some sort of personal application. How do you take this with you? Like actionable steps, like tomorrow, right? Okay. So a few things that I think that we need to first cover is that this whole situation, this whole case study that we're looking at is a business strategy or I should say led by Daniel Ek, right? Daniel Ek is the CEO of Spotify, and he did a few things. I'm just going to dive right into some of the strategies that he led, some of the initiatives. One is prioritizing user experience and discovery. Y'all know that a large part of my background is in user experience. And so when we talk about discovery, the discovery of music, information architecture has a huge part to play in how people find the music that they love, music that they are looking for. And so they differentiated themselves, Spotify did, by building a best-in-class platform with some top-notch UX. They're focusing on personalized discovery through curated playlists, algorithms, and they're doing that more than just, offering a vast music library like some of its competitors do. And Apple's getting a little bit better at it, but there's a reason why Spotify is out on top right now. But then also the other thing too is they build a scale to leverage data advantages, which means they understood the importance of just attracting. Now this is key right here, attracting a large user base, but they did it by recognizing that the resulting data would enhance the recommendation algorithms. Algorithms are huge in these music players, but it would create a powerful data flywheel, so to speak, a data flywheel effect. And so this data advantage also allowed Spotify to do some things such as expand beyond music streaming and then position itself as the Google of audio search. I think that's key. All right. Because remember, it's one thing to say, oh, we're just going to, be a competitor in the music industry and help people to find the music that they love and that they're looking for, or maybe even for a DJ, whatever it is. No. We're going to go a little bit deeper, and we're going to take the data that we have been curating, collecting from these users, and let's go ahead and position ourselves as the Google of audio search. So that means that it's going to encompass podcasts, it's going to encompass audiobooks, and some of the other audio content that they have. So that's big. So we've got UX and discovery. We've got the scale to leverage data from the users. We call them data advantages. And then some of the other things too, like negotiating the complexities of the music industry, because y'all know back in the day there was a huge fallout. I think it was with Taylor Swift. I think, was she the one that that kind of lit the fire with that? But just kind of them recognizing the power dynamics in the music industry. What he decided to do was balance the interest of music labels while advocating for a fair distribution of profits. Listen, it was not pretty back in the day, right? People were upset about how much people being artists, about how much they were actually getting paid based on the streams that were amassing, and so fairness had to come. It's almost kind of like with the ride sharing industry too. So the company, what they did was they explored options like direct deals with the actual artist. And what they did was also leverage their insights to optimize the label spending and marketing, things like that. So negotiation was a part of it too, right? These are some big things, right? This is so important because once again, this is how they started leveraging this thing, right? The next thing is strategic expansion into podcasts. They said, all right, it's one thing to find music and to listen to music. That's cool. But you know what? We're going to take it up a notch. We're going to go to another level. So they aggressively invested in a few things so that their podcasts can be more robust. So they acquired companies, securing exclusive deals with popular personalities like Joe Rogan, right? That was recent. And what that did was it diversified their content offerings, right? So what they now have is proving cost structure by shifting towards fixed costs and creating new revenue streams with significant potential for monetization. So this is some things. So basically, at the end of the day, like ultimately, what's happening here is that their strategy to dominate the audio industry, what we're thinking about here, what we're looking at, was to basically build that position in the audio market, that dominant position, by combining the user-centric approach, combining innovative tech, combining strategic partnerships. Remember, there's some negotiations that had to happen. And also, at the end of the day, none of it cannot be successful without a vision. In this case, a long-term vision. All right. And so once again, the CEO, Daniel Ek, was the one that spearheaded this approach. And so what he did was he challenged these larger, more established competitors by kind of heading in this direction and then to become the leader in music streaming, while though creating a platform with the potential to disrupt the entire audio industry. So who are some of the key players here? All right. So we're going to take a look at some of the key people that we've got that are in cahoots with Sir Daniel Ek here. Let me see if I can find who these people were. Let's see. Who were they? Okay. So we got the CFO, Barry McCarthy. At least these are the ones that we can find in the actual case study. So Barry McCarthy, former CFO. And in this one, he was actually, this case study, quoted discussing demand creation, and it's important to engagement, conversion, retention, and the lifetime value. First time I heard of lifetime value was doing, well, two things. First, MBA in healthcare, but then second, when just before the pandemic hit, was working on a startup, and just the lifetime value of a customer, where you can actually put a dollar sign in a sense on someone when they purchase your first product or when they subscribe for something or a particular service, and you can kind of project how long they will be your customer. So that's what the lifetime value is. That is what Barry McCarthy was doing. Then we've got Paul Aaron Vogel. It's interesting. We had a Vogel yesterday. We talked about Christopher Vogel with the movie version of the hero's journey. So this is actually different because he's now the current CEO. So this current CEO in this case study, he's talking about how the company's enhanced discoverability is making music listening more diffuse and weakening the label power, which is very interesting. And so this is where, you've got your CEO, you've got your current CFO, you've got the former CFO kind of leading the charge here with Daniel Ek to really look at this customer-centric approach, to look at a commitment to innovation, and once again, that long-term vision, right? Super key long-term vision here. Okay. Yeah. So that's what this whole strategy is about. Now, if you take a look at the timeline of Spotify, you'll see that they've come quite a way. So let's see, and I think this might stop at 2020, but in the early years, like pre 2011, the music industry now is struggling with declining revenues due to piracy. Y'all remember Napster? I know y'all remember Napster. Yeah, Napster was the thing back in the day. I can neither confirm or deny that I was actually using Napster. There were some other ones too. MyTunes was another one too. Oh my goodness, there's so many. LimeWire. Y'all remember LimeWire? Oh my goodness, I'm telling on myself. So music industry, it struggled with declining revenues due to piracy and digital disruption. And then at 2011, that's when Spotify launches in the US, and they had this new model of music consumption through streaming. All right. It's crazy how it feels so long ago. 2011. Wow, y'all. That's what is that? 14 years ago? My goodness. Okay. Then from 2011 to 2018, there's growth and expansion happening with Spotify. So they're rapidly growing. They're subscriber based. They are expanding internationally, and they become the market leader in music streaming. And then in 2018, so between this time frame, 2011 to 2018, but in 2018, Spotify goes public at $169 per share. Go Spotify. But then they hit some challenges. So like between 2018 and 2020, they face these competitor challenges like Apple Music, Amazon Music. And so their stock price starts to become stagnant. That's what happens when you have competitors. Competitors hop in and it's like, we want some of the share too. Okay. That's super important. I'm just gonna pause here because there's also a competitive strategy thing that we can look at with Spotify, but I just want to pause here and take a look at the fact that from a personal standpoint, right? You need to have a long-term vision for what you want to do. Yes, it's the beginning of the year still. It's June. Mercy, I'm already in the middle of the year. It's January 5th. All right. And if you haven't even just taken a gander at what the possibilities of what your year could look like, let alone your decade, there's a whole nother conversation, then do yourself a favor and just think about around this time in December, where do I want to see? Where do I want to be? Where do I see myself? All right. Listen, we've got, I'm still working through my the year compass I was telling you guys about, because I'm using that on top of the yearly planner that I usually have. So it's like taking it to another level. But listen, just start thinking about what it is that you want to do and be and see come December. Now, some of this stuff is not going to happen until the end of 2026 because you start this year, and that's okay. But the issue that we have, I think, oftentimes is because the vision doesn't come to fruition as quickly as we think, we give up. Daniel Ek and these guys, listen, the CEO was like, we in this for the long haul. So 2011, they launch. 2018, they go public. 2 years later, their stock prices now start to stagnate because Apple Music hops on, Amazon hops on. Listen, you better believe that once you start having this vision and once you start going in a particular place, you will have some challenges. You may not necessarily have competitors, like, let's say if you're not starting a business, but there are different kinds of competitors that are out there too. You may not think about it this way, but the competitors may not necessarily be people. There could be, it could be other people pulling for your attention and your time that you need to dedicate towards the thing that you say that you want to do, or the transformation that you want to see in yourself, or whatever the case is. Listen, hey, next tomorrow, my trainer, he got me on a new plan, a new diet plan that's starting up, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's gonna be a lot, y'all. It's gonna be a lot, and I realized that the hardest part for me is not It's not lifting weights. It's the diet. I mean, I always knew this. I even told him this before I even signed up. When I was like, listen, I need somebody who's going to also be intentional with my eating as well, because I have the opposite issue with a lot of people where they eat too much. It's like I need to actually have the discipline to eat more. When I get stressed, I don't eat. I be skipping calories. I'm in my head when I need to have something in my stomach. So but we begin a new plan tomorrow. And listen, and let me tell you, he laid out the whole situation for me. He was like, listen, we're gonna need you're gonna need a way to track. And I mentioned this before. These are things that I have done before, but sometimes you just need the person to take the same tools and the resources that you've used in the past, and you need to just trust them to take you through the process that you said you've gone through before. You just need somebody to guide you, right? So I've used apps before, but this app, it's a whole nother different app, y'all. This app is called this is not the MyFitnessPal. This is called RP Diet. This one, oh my goodness. I had to pay for this one because there's a lot that's going on. There's tracking sleep. They're tracking the amount of meals that you have per day. They're tracking obviously the macros. So they're tracking the carbs, the protein, the fats. They're tracking the shakes that I'll take before working. It's a lot. It's a lot. And so the crazy part is, it says even right here, it says my diet starts on one day. The crazy part, which is tomorrow. My trainer wasn't on all this when I first started, right? Long-term vision. The reason why he was not introducing these things to me now is because now, having been with him for 5, almost 6 months, he's now introducing more tools and things that I can use now that I've gotten into a particular habit of knowing how to maintain weight, et cetera, et cetera. So now we can get a little bit more focused on additional resources that'll take my fitness and my health to the next level. But we didn't start out that way. The issue is, for a lot of us, when we think about this long-term vision, we're also thinking about all of the tools and the things that we need first, versus just showing up. And he was just like showing up. He said, as a matter of fact, I just want to see how you eat. We're not going to change your diet right now. I just want to take a photo of every single meal that you eat. He wasn't changing anything, y'all. And so I'm saying this because I'm pretty sure with Daniel Ek, CEO of Spotify, and the rest of those guys, like, what they were doing is, before they had this long-term vision, I'm pretty sure they had to take stock in what was actually happening in the company first, right? There's an assessment process that was going on. And then, they went ahead and started to get more focused in their competitive strategy for customer-centric focus, and for that commitment to innovation. All right, so we got 2018 to 2020, competitors start swinging out. Right, in 2019, Spotify invests heavily in podcasts. They're like, okay, so this is what y'all doing. We gonna pivot. Now, here's the thing. My first podcast experience was not with Spotify. It was back in 2006 with Apple. I believe it was iTunes at the time. And I can remember to this day, I think my exposure to podcasts was through TED, the TED Talks. This was back in the day when the BMW sponsorship, when they had that heartbeat kind of introduction. Y'all, some of y'all remember the old school podcast intro for the TED Talks. And this was like 2006. And I can go even more specific. My first exposure from the podcast experience with the TED Talks was from Sir Ken Robinson. The late great Sir Ken Robinson. He's no longer living, but man, if there's a book that you should probably get from him, I would say it's called The Element. It's like when your purpose meets your passion. He's got a couple books. And that one is probably a really good one. He gives a great story about a young lady. She's in class, but she was just always fidgeting and just wasn't really doing very well. The teacher was always disciplining her. I'm probably butchering this story, but just bear with me. And so she takes her to the principal office with the mother. Long story short, I don't know if it was the principal. It was somebody who was in the class that recognized, it could have been the teacher, who recognized that she didn't have a disciplinary problem. she was just a kinesthetic learner. She was a kinesthetic person. She was a dancer. And so, long story short, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, but it's in the book. They put her into dance school and she succeeds. She excels in that, versus like forcing her to just sit down in one place and to study. So anyway, I say that because that was my first exposure to podcasts. It was through Apple, but now Spotify is the one that's killing the game, right? They invest heavily in podcasts, aiming to diversify its content offerings and attract new listeners. And then in 2020, this is like where the timeline kind of stops right now, but their stock price surges now due to the optimism about the podcast strategy that they have, and also the potential for future growth in podcasts. Podcasts have been going through, ups and downs, and y'all probably have seen that as well, because it was not as popular in the early 2000s, but it was kind of emerging, and then it got really popular maybe a few years after that. I was always like an early adopter, so I was always testing things out and trying things out when it wasn't really that big of a thing just yet. And then it didn't really I would say maybe 5 years or so, maybe, like it wasn't really that deep. No. 5 years ago, it was actually pretty popular. Anyway, maybe just before this 2019, when they were realizing, oh, podcast is the way to go again, maybe, right? All of that to say, podcasts take off again. Somebody can argue like, oh, well, it always was taking off. It's just like a slow inclination or steady incline of traction. Maybe. But I remember when Anchor.fm, some of y'all remember Anchor FM, which was then acquired by, I believe it was acquired by Spotify. That's when I think it started to become more popular, when you had some of those apps that were making it so simple for people to just hop on their phones and just go and just talk, making things super simple. Anyway, so I'm gonna go back. You're gonna have competitors. As soon as you have the long-term vision and you have the strategy, competitors will come. It may not be like the Apples and the Amazons of the world like it was for Spotify, but it will be things that will be competing for your attention, competing for your time, competing for your resources. Like, this is what happens. And so in 2020, the stock prices rise. Okay, so they got the competitors. They're like, you know what, we need to pivot. So they pivot by focusing on, or not pivot, but adding to their strategy by focusing on podcasts, and they take off. Right. So we got, once again, I'm gonna give you the list of what we call the cast of characters, these individuals that were involved in this situation. So we got Daniel Ek, who's a Spotify CEO and co-founder. So he's known once again for that long-term vision, the focus on user experience, aggressive growth strategy. And I guess you can be compared to like Jeff Bezos in his approach to business. But then you got Barry McCarthy. I mentioned him too, the former Spotify CFO. His importance was on the demand creation and engagement. All right. And then you got Paul Aaron Vogel, who's the current, unless he's no longer current, this was like from 2019, current CFO. Who was focusing on increasing the diversity of music consumption on the platform. But then we have Richard Burgess, the CEO of American Association of Independent Music, that highlighted Spotify's data advantage in identifying emerging artists. Listen. All right. By the way, these guys, the next ones that I'm going to mention, they're not the ones that were a part of the strategy, but they're now they're brought into this case study to let us know more about what was going on. And then maybe even some of the people that helped to bolster make the strategy become a reality and just like take it to the next level. So for instance, like Chance the Rapper, who achieved success without a record label, demonstrating the potential for artists to go direct, right? When we're talking about streaming and with Spotify, direct to the artist. Metallica. Some of y'all may not know Metallica, but it's the band. It ended its contract actually with Warner Music Group in 2012, and then licensed its music directly to Spotify. Right. Then you got Joe Rogan recently, who had the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, and then Spotify secured an exclusive deal with him, similar to Sirius's deal with Howard Stern. Listen, this is important. Joe Rogan already had the podcast before Spotify came to him. Can we just pause there for a second? And can we just talk about the fact that sometimes you're probably waiting for the big deal. You're probably waiting for the big moment, the big opportunity, Mr. or Mrs. CFO, CTO, CEO, CMO. Like you're waiting for the opportunity to happen when the thing has to be done first. Some of y'all are wishing one day that when you write a book that Random House is gonna just go ahead and pick it up, when maybe you just need to publish it through Amazon first. And maybe they see it and say, wow, it's taking traction. Oh, it's number one in these 5 categories, these 5 areas. Maybe we should go pick it up and offer them a deal. Like you really need to stop looking at, if I do this, who's going to pay attention to it versus can we just build a thing first? That's what Joe Rogan did, whether you like him or not. As a matter of fact, side note, I didn't know that Joe Rogan was the same guy that did, what was the show called when he had hair? Was it called Fear? I think it was on MTV or something like that. I had no idea that was him for the longest time. And I think I don't know. I think I looked him up and I saw that and I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Talk about the power of reinvention, not just in the space that he's working in professionally, but the look as well. Because I mean, MMA, like now I don't know if he was doing that, if he was a fighter while he was, being a host on TV, but man, talk about transitions. If you think it's not possible, I think it gives you peace of mind to know that there are people, even the popular people that we know, they've lived lives, past lives, doing different things. And now they're here. Now Spotify is picking up somebody's podcast who used to be now some of it is a golden thread of what they've done, right? Like he was a television co-host. So, now he's hosting a podcast. There's some qualities that he still had, right? Being on a microphone versus being on television, able to ask questions and, able to dig a little bit deeper on the people that are on camera, or in this case at his desk. But another one was Michelle Obama. DC Comics, Kim Kardashian. Apparently these individuals and brands, they've also partnered with Spotify for podcast content. All right. So big things. Now the reason why I bring this up is because first it started with a Daniel Ek. Started with somebody at the C-level that had this idea and this long-term vision. And then what ended up happening is people like Apple Music. Well, I shouldn't say people, but companies like Apple Music, who is still to this day Spotify's main competitor, that leverage this large iOS user base and device ecosystem. Like, Apple's like, listen, we're going to hop in this thing because we have a user base. Now, I think Android's user base is actually larger just from an international standpoint, but, Amazon Music, offers a discounted service to Amazon Prime members if they utilize the Alexa smart speaker platform that has music, right? So okay. So here's the thing. I want us to take a look at the strategies, all right? Because the competitive advantage. So some of the competitive advantages, we kind of glazed over it a little bit, or glossed, I should say. Oh, glaze has a whole different term now. Oh my God. Kind of glossed over it a little bit in the beginning. So the competitive advantage for the user experience and discoverability, what they ended up doing was they ended up focusing once again on personalized music discovery and curated playlists. So for instance, they have more than, and it's probably even higher now, because remember, this is a 2020 case study. They have more than 50 million songs on its platform. And the average user spends 25 hours per month on the service. Which, this is interesting, which is even more than users spend on Facebook or Instagram. Wow, that's major. Now, Facebook, I don't know about, but Instagram, it's huge. About a third of Spotify's users spend their listening time on Spotify generated playlists, and another third listening to user generated playlists. And then the personalized discovered weekly playlist has generated 5.3 billion hours of listening since it was launched in 2015. Listen, this is major. We're talking about discoverability here. And the amazing thing is that it's not even them curating and putting together their own playlist. Spotify is helping them out with 1/3. Other users like, oh yeah, I love their playlist, helping them out with 1/3. I mean, we've seen this before. We've seen this where even like presidents. I think the first time that I really saw it, because I wasn't using Spotify like that, was when Obama would share his playlist. Now I don't know if it was connected to Spotify. I think it was, but and he would say this is my summer playlist, right? Which is pretty cool. So you would know that people would sign up for that, or maybe sign up for Spotify to leverage popular people's playlists. All right. So that's the user experience and discoverability. That's one major competitive advantage. Another major competitive advantage, we talked about this before, but we're going to go a little bit deeper, is the data and scale advantages. What does that mean? So their large user base, which is twice the size of Apple Music's as of this case study, the high engagement, which users are twice as engaged as Apple Music users, because honestly, I'll be real with you, I'm not really engaged on Apple Music like that. And I have to build my own. I don't have to, but I create my own playlist, right? And I just won't switch. Call it stubbornness, but it's just in the ecosystem. It's easy to just say, assistant, play this or play my whatever it is. I don't know if when I say assistant, I won't say Siri, because if I say it loud enough, everything in my home is gonna just light up. You want me? No, I don't. I'm really not. I don't need you right now. So the data, here's a cool thing, right? So the data advantage allows Spotify to expand into other audio content beyond music, right? So we talked about this a little bit before, podcasts, audiobooks, but also like meditation. And because of that, I'm going to tie back into this idea of it being the Google of audio search, because what they're trying to do, not even trying to, I mean, they're leveraging it, is this user base. And that high engagement, which allows them to collect massive amounts of data, which is just kind of further enhancing its recommendation algorithms and creating a strong data, what they call a strong data flywheel, right? And strong data flywheel is just this. As a matter of fact, let me give you the proper definition of flywheel, because I know what a flywheel is, but it's considered a business model that uses data to drive growth and innovation by creating a self-reinforcing cycle. Just like as soon as it starts, it just propels itself. All right. So it gathers high quality data from a variety of sources, including customer feedback, analytic tools, AI algorithms, and then use the insights to improve the products, the services, the platforms, create personalized experiences for customers. So that's what a data flywheel was. Apparently, it was popularized by Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great. So that's where it's coming from. And the idea is that once the flywheel starts turning, it gains momentum and requires less input to maintain speed. That's kind of like sweat equity. As soon as you start putting in the work, like if you put in a lot of work 1 year for whatever it is that you're doing, the next year is probably going to be a little bit easier. All right. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Strong brand and social integration. So features like the popular Rap Caviar playlist show that Spotify is a taste maker in the industry and have helped to build a strong brand identity that resonates with music lovers. So that's pretty cool. And then we have, with these advantages, are these sustainable? Like what's going on here? So despite its advantages, what Spotify does is it still continues to face this competition from Apple, from Amazon, from YouTube, even though, I think they're all in the same, like Spotify, but what they're doing here with all of these competitors, Spotify's success in the future will depend on its ability to maintain and build on the advantages that we just kind of mentioned above, but it still also faces several challenges. One of the challenges that they face is the power of music labels. So the music industry is dominated by a few large labels still to this day, which take a large percentage of profits from streaming. So Spotify will have to continually negotiate favorable terms with those labels. However, those power dynamics might shift in the future. I would say in the very near future, because streaming allows for more independent artists to gain popularity, so it reduces the reliance on those big labels. All right. So you got the power of music labels, you got the competition from big tech. So while Spotify remains the market leader, Apple and Amazon are both leveraging their vast resources and existing customer bases as well to compete aggressively with the strategies like device integration. I mean, that's why I'm an Apple Music user. The device integration, low cost offerings. As a matter of fact, I'm using it through my Verizon. I don't like my all the extra Apple stuff, like Apple, like the Cloud Plus and all that stuff. I'm using actually through my phone, the package for my phone service, right? So yeah, competitors are going to find ways. They're going to find creative ways of leveraging what they have and also building these other partnerships so that people can buy into it, like literally buy into it. Monetization and profitability is another sticky point here because Spotify has not increased its subscription price since 2011. Now, I haven't checked it yet, but remember, this is a 2020 case study. So as of 2020, they haven't raised their subscription price, which is also now raising concerns about its long-term profitability. But their high engagement levels and consumer surplus suggest that it has considerable pricing power, which of course it does. And it can use that to increase profitability if they wanted to in the future. So yeah. Now, dependence on third-party platforms is another one. And right now, Spotify relies on platforms like Apple's App Store, Google Play to distribute its app. Am I incorrect? See, I don't want to sound silly here. So I'm just gonna look it up before I ask y'all if any of y'all are still out there. I don't even know if anybody's out there listening right now, but that's okay. We're gonna find this out. Okay, it's not. All right. Okay, I just had to look that up. I'm not going to ask it on the stream. All right. So yeah, so that's the competitive advantage, all right, guys? We have user experience and discoverability. We've got the data and the scale advantages of they're using. So remember, the more data that they've got, because their user base is twice the size of Apple's, they're able to take that, collect this data, and improve the recommendation algorithms and all of that. And then the strong brand and social integration. Okay, that's that. Now we're about a little over half an hour in. Anybody got any thoughts? Anything that you want to drop? Any insights? I just think this is interesting because when I think of from a C-level perspective, listen, the person that's at the C-level, they don't have to execute, right? Like in its technical, in the most technical sense, execute the strategies, but they have to know the resources, the tech that's available. They have to know what's going on in the market. Like they have to know these things so that when they are putting together the strategy and they can kind of decipher like, okay, you know what, we can definitely have a competitive advantage in this arena. We might not have it here. Let's over-index on this side. That's what they did with podcasts. You can do the same thing personally too. Like you can take stock, like take inventory of what your strengths are, what your, if you don't want to call them weaknesses, your deltas, the things that need to be improved are, and figure out like where should you over index in 2025? The thing that you should just put more energy into, and then, and not even like let the chips fall where they may, because with a strategy, it's not just kind of throwing it up and letting see what happens as much as it is throwing it up in a very particular area. Throwing the seeds, let's say if you're like planting, you're throwing the seeds in a particular spot, and what you don't have control over is what's happening underneath the soil. Like you don't have control over that, but you have control of how you're watering it. You, to an extent, may have control of the sunlight, but you don't have control over what's happening underneath. You have control over the type of soil that you're dropping it into, right? And so you can do the same thing. You can do the same thing strategically for yourself personally in 2025 as well, okay? Some of these things you should not overthink, but some of it you do need to take a lot of thought. Not necessarily overthinking, but a lot of thought into just where should your energy be focused? Where should it be placed? So in this case, with Spotify, they placed a lot of money and resource into their podcast. It's a huge part. And remember, the competitive advantage is not podcasting. The competitive advantage is how that's being used. The large data, the what do they call it? What do they call it? Data analytics. Like it's man, not data sets, but it's escaping me now. Maybe because it's late and it's time to go to sleep. But they have these large data sets, right? They've got the UX behind it. They've got the social, what did we call it? Well, it's the connection of like negotiating the complexities in the music industry and the expansion into podcasts. But like all of that is surrounded around what do we call that? We said it was I think we called it like brand and social. What do we call it? Brand and social integration. And within brand and social integration, you have the negotiations that are happening, and of course the over indexing on the podcasting and things like that. All right. So anyway, just saying this is some stuff that you can also do personally as well. Okay. And once again, the plan came from the top. There might have been some discussions, or maybe there could have been like some sort of innovation, a think tank or something that happened. But at the end of the day, it came from the strategic vision and the pioneering of Daniel Ek, who developed and executed the company's strategy. And when I say executed, like he made sure that it happened, but in the most technical sense, he didn't do all of that, right? I mean, that's why they have a whole company that focuses on podcasting and the negotiations. And, there are probably some parts that only he was able to do, right? Versus the CFOs. I mean, both CFOs, right? That had some part to play in it. Okay. So anyway, and that's the other thing too, right? The team was split. So you've got one that's really focusing on the strategy, focusing on the long-term vision. You've got another one that's focusing on the importance of engagement and conversion and retention and lifetime value. And then they had another, which CFO that kind of came in and then took it to understanding more of discoverability and like weakening or diffusing the music label's power so that you can actually have more conversion and retention and lifetime value if you actually have stronger partnerships with the artist, right? All of them come together. Okay, so that is that, y'all. I'm gonna leave it at that, but I'm going to hop off of LinkedIn and we're gonna bringing it on and popping on the other streams. But for LinkedIn though, y'all go to sleep. We got work in the morning. We'll see y'all when we see y'all. And for everyone else, though, I'm gonna stay on for y'all. So give me 1 second here. All right, LinkedIn. See y'all later. Okay. All right, y'all. So listen, what I'm looking to do is I'm really gonna be focusing on finding ways on making this more of a reality, like looking at case studies. I'm looking into a particular a book that would be a great start for January as well, like a C-level book that's kind of like breaking down a lot of principles and maybe even some decision frameworks. But yeah, it's very interesting that we just kind of stopped on this quote right here. If you try sometimes, well, you just might find that you get what you need. Listen. Yeah, this is a really in-depth case. I think that you guys would appreciate this. It's okay. So actually, let me put the link. If you can't find it, let me put the link in the actual. I'm gonna put it as a banner. Oh, whoops. I'm gonna put it as a banner right quick. And let's pop that up. Okay. So that's the link. So that's where I went to find this case study. moiglobal.com/Spotify case study 2020 08. Okay. I wonder if we did it as if I did it as a ticker, if that would actually make it a little bit more, make it sleeker. A little better. Okay. So that's that link. If you're wanting to look at it, and if you want to kind of take a deeper dive into what I just explained, then you can take a look at that. All right. But outside of that, I know that this stuff is probably now for some of y'all, was this helpful? Like, are you rocking with this? If not, we can, just figure out like what is it that's going to, I'm still going to stick to the power of storytelling, business, decision making, like that stuff. But maybe I just need to start, which I am. The goal is to have, if they're available this coming week, which I said that I had it good to go. So if everything is still good on their end, I'm going to have a CMO hop on and kind of talk about one of the hard decisions that he had to make while in his position. So, but yeah, the reason why I like this case study is because, they break it up into like even some of these quotable quotes. Like if you focus on near-term growth, above all else, you miss the most important question you should be asking. Will this business still be around a decade from now? Numbers alone won't tell you the answer. Instead, you must think, this should be okay, to think critically about the qualitative characteristics of your business. This is the same thing in person too. For you as an individual, it's the same thing. Like you have to ask yourself, what is my end game? Not just in 2025, but 2035. Where do I see myself? What am I looking to do? And if whatever it is that I'm looking to do, is it still going to be around? Whatever it is, even who you are choosing to become. Is that person sustainable? Can that person stick around? That's up to you to decide. All right. You gotta decide that for yourself. But it says numbers alone won't tell you the answer, right? You got to think. You got to really think about some other stuff. What are some of the characteristics, not just now of your business, but of yourself, your personality? Some of you have never taken something like the DISC assessment. Some of you, I'll probably bring this up again, but this is actually a good one. The 16 personalities test. This is a pretty dope one. I found out that, so I'm an ENFJ, and I found out that ENFJs are they make up 1% of the 16 personalities. And what that really just means is that we are, a lot of people don't understand this. So this is me, y'all. ENFJ, more on the extroverted side, intuitive, kind of in the middle. We're in the middle for some of these on the judging side. So the judging side is about being likely organized, decisive, thorough, valuing structure, planning over spontaneity. I mean, think about it. That makes a lot of sense, right? Makes a lot of sense for what I'm doing right now. I'm thinking about, C-level breakdown and stories, and because it's a lot about strategy. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that I don't like spontaneity. I can be a spontaneous person, but my default is to create a plan. Even if in my mind, even if to the other person it seems spontaneous, I already had the plan in my head. So maybe it's not really spontaneous at all. Maybe I was like, I'm gonna think about it. I'm gonna plan it out, and then when I introduce it to somebody, like, oh wow, yeah, let's do that, and I've already got it. Bop, 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 bop. I already know what I'm gonna do, right? So yeah, the extroverted, you likely get energized by social interaction and tend to openly express your enthusiasm and excitement. So a lot of people they have a misconception of what actually let me just kind of drop that. They have a misconception of what introversion versus extroversion means. Save that. I just dropped that there. Introversion is when you're with people, you get drained. You're just like, oof, man, time to leave the party. Extroversion, and this is why sometimes I avoid being in groups and sometimes because I know I'm going to get energized. And sometimes I just don't want to be up. I just want to be chill. And sometimes it doesn't happen while I'm there. Sometimes it happens after it's done, and then it's like, okay, we outside. Where we going next? So that's what extroversion is. Intuitive. So I'm like hedging just a little bit more on intuitive than I am observing, but I'm more or less in the middle, but likely very imaginative, open-minded, focusing on hidden meanings and distant possibilities. Right. So kind of just kind of the. So I did this before with brand archetypes. I took two archetypes that I did believe I strongly parallel to, which was the architect and the alchemist. And the architect is one that loves to solve or see the world through blueprints and solving problems through frameworks, right? That's the judging, right? Structure, planning. But then I realized that I am the alchemist, taking natural elements. And I love taking things that look natural and turning it into something magical. That's what an alchemist does, right? They take rocks and they turn it into gold. And so this level of imagination, curiosity, open-mindedness kind of falls under the four core values that I have: competence or mastery, curiosity, creativity, and progression. Feeling, it's like I'm a little hedging on the feeling side, a little bit more. Likely value emotional expression and sensitivity, prioritizing empathy for sure, social harmony, and cooperation, right? So this kind of balances me out to be feeling and then to be judging, which is like more organized, decisive. You know, I like being decisive. I enjoy being decisive. I like making decisions and being clear cut. Okay. Now this says it was taken in 20. It might be time. It might be time for me to take it again. I thought I actually took it before, but yeah, May 13th, 2023. Wow, yeah, it's probably time again, y'all. For sure. But I've been in ENFJ for quite some time. If you want to take a look, as you can see here, ENFJ, like we're talking about from 2017, y'all. I have been in ENFJ. Now, what changed was just, I think this was around 2020. Oh, that makes sense. I was more turbulent than I was assertive. But I've been in ENFJ for quite some time. So I've been taking the personality test like every few years. All right. 4 years, 3 years later. Oh, every 3 years, actually. So maybe I should take it again next year. All right. I'm not going to take it again right now. That'd be crazy if I took it in front of y'all. That'd be wild. Maybe I should take it in front of y'all. The assertive is I'm likely self-assured, even-tempered, and resistant to stress, refusing to worry too much. Let me tell you why I was probably on the T. This is during the pandemic. Well. Technically, the shutdown happened in March. So maybe I can't use that as an excuse. But for whatever reason, 2020, your boy was turbulent. We were a little bit of a turbulent protagonist. Okay. And then you'd be surprised, but with some of the people who are ENFJs, let me see if they've got it here. Let me go back. No friends. No new friend. Oh, I'm definitely not unlocking none of this. Y'all not getting my money. Okay, here. Barack Obama is an ENFJ. Oprah Winfrey is an ENFJ. John Cusack, Ben Affleck, Malala Yousafzai is, I gotta pronounce that name properly, Jennifer Lawrence. We've got a lot of actors as ENFJs. Should I be an actor, y'all? Maya Angelou, poet. The why. So the why she's an ENFJ is because this is her poem, A Brave and Startling Truth. Essentially lived her life on stage. She was a singer, dancer, creator, and activist. A lot of people don't know this. They just probably see her, and even I just mentioned poet, but she was actually more than just that. She was also there's actually a very popular, I don't know if it's popular, but an actual image of her like writing This is like in the, I don't even know how long ago this would have been, but I think she's like on the edge of her bed, like writing, but you can kind of tell she's having a great time just being in her element. This is also around the time like Harry Belafonte, like all of these guys and gals, they were not just famous, they were using their fame and activating it through activism. They were activists as well. Right. Yeah, dang, they had the whole story on her. Extroverted. This is the whole breakdown. I did not know that they had this. So Maya Angelou, for all intents and purposes, was destined to live a tragic life. Oh man, I guess we got to look at the whole thing to realize it. She was born into poverty to parents who separated when she was young. She faced a horrible trauma that made her think she couldn't speak. It was one of those years, or it was in those years of not speaking that she truly found her voice. In the time that she was silent, Maya Angelou developed into the icon we remember today. In the time that she was silent, that's wild. Angelou taught us to love, taught us that love, kindness, and self-respect are the most important things in life. And her message has resounded loud and clear. So here, of course, they're going to have a little plug-in for themselves. Here at 16 Personalities, we hold accuracy in high esteem. That said, there's only so much research we can do on a person. Okay, so yeah. But yeah, assertive protagonist. You can tell them. So when we go back, if you go back to assertive Sean Connery, if we go back to, oh, wow. I forgot Morpheus is a protagonist. They got fictional characters as well. Elizabeth Bennet. We got 2 Matrix characters. Skylar White. Skylar, really? Wifey from Breaking Bad? Oh. Laurel Lance. I never really watched Arrow. Anything on CW for me was just like, so except for The Flash until it also got Isabel Crawley. My mom used to watch that show, Downton Abbey, and Sealy Booth Bones. Yeah, I never really watched Bones, but you can kind of see, because isn't this the same guy from Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Angel, same guy, right? Yeah, maybe not. Okay. Let me scroll back up so that we can see my profile. So with assertive, it's the self-assured, even-tempered, resistant to stress. So the turbulence is the one that's the opposite of that. All right. Okay. All right. But yeah, I would encourage you guys, if you have not, this is not my website, by the way, if you didn't know. If you have not taken the 16 personalities test, I would encourage you to do it. Do it this year. See what makes you you. Because remember, when we take a look at this, let me see if I can find the quote again. The quote that says, this quote right here. If you focus on near-term growth, right? But then it says numbers alone won't tell you the answer. You must critically think about the qualitative characteristics of your business. What are the qualitative characteristics of you as an individual? Well, taking a test like this, an assessment like this, can help you to do so. Now, there's also, I get it. There's also, I even think there's a documentary on, because the 16 personalities test is just a version of the Myers-Briggs assessment. And I know that there's a lot of research that's been done on like the racial discrimination with those tests. And I get it. But you know what? Take the test anyway. Just take the test. See where you land. You don't have to treat it as gold the same way that you don't have to treat your zodiac sign as, the thing. I'm on the Virgo cusp. So I guess I'm more Virgo than Leo. I'm more Leo than Virgo. August 24th, y'all. If anybody knows where I land, but I'm on that cusp. And listen, they said even before I was hearing it from others, I was like, yo, this is going to be my year. And of course, you got, people that do these readings and stuff. It's like, yo, Virgos, this is your year. I'm like, oh, man. So the energy, whether you believe it or not, I'm like, yo, the energy is right. Let's go. So I say all of that to say, take the test. You never know. one thing you have at least some sense of direction, and you can, just take it with a grain of salt. Protagonists are inspiring optimists, readily taking action. Yep, we like making decisions to do what they feel is right. These warm, I guess I'm warm, forthright, yeah, I guess I could be forthright types love helping others and have the creative energy to achieve their goals. We tend to be high achievers. So apparently that's my personality. My role, I've never actually clicked on this before. We are in the category of diplomats. So I'll show you what that looks like here. But under diplomats, there are protagonists. So diplomats focus on empathy and cooperation, empathy and cooperation, shining in diplomacy and counseling. They're imaginative. There goes that word warm again. Empathetic. There goes that word again. And influential people, often playing the role of harmonizers. It makes sense. Makes sense why a lot of these individuals are, as we have looked at it, if they're not actors. By the way, Denzel Washington, I don't think he's because he's not on here. But he actually got the, what's it called? The Medal of Freedom today by Joe Biden, which is pretty cool. But we've got a lot of actors that are ENFJs. And then some C-level type people, presidential type people are, you got the Oprahs, you got the Obamas that are, ENFJs. So harmonizers, all right? All politics aside, like just the personality type, okay? And then my strategy is people mastery. Individuals who prefer the people mastery strategy seek social contact and have very good communication skills, feeling at ease in social events or directing others. They're confident in readily expressing their opinions. Or they're confident and readily express their opinions. I actually go by, you probably hear me say this again, I actually go by this framework that focuses, that goes like this. Does it need to be said? Does it need to be said now? And does it need to be said now by me? So even though it says confident, readily express my opinions, I'm careful to, does that thing need to be said? Because sometimes it doesn't. Whatever it is, correcting somebody or whatever the case is, does it need to be said immediately? Maybe, maybe not. And if it doesn't, relax. What you tripping for? But does it need to be said now? Or sorry, so let me back up. Does it need to be said? Let's just say yes or no, right? Does it need to be said now? And then does it need to be said now by me? Because sometimes I don't need to be the one that needs to bring it up. Maybe I can take my grievance, whatever the case is, to someone else. And maybe they can be the mediator. So, I live in an apartment. So when you have noise challenges, management is like, don't go to them directly. Go to us and we'll call them. But somebody like me, listen, I'll go straight down. There was one time, man, people were just like crazy in the gym one time. Well, actually, multiple times. I go downstairs. I open up the door to the gym and I look around and I said, hey, it's people that are living above you. We can hear when you drop the weights. Now, that's a testament to the quality of the building that I live in. That's all the situation. But the point is, listen, side note, some of these buildings, they look great on the outside and, they look luxury, but man, the infrastructure is just wild. Anyway, backing up. So dropping the weights. I go downstairs. Listen, y'all, I would go downstairs. I'm like, yo, what's good? Now, of course, I try not to go with an attitude, but I'm highly peeved, but I go downstairs. Like, hey guys, we can hear you. Oh man, downstairs? No, upstairs. Oh, really? Well, how's that possible? I don't know either, but it's possible. We can hear you. So I am the person that would I readily express it, but I've also learned sometimes it doesn't need to be said by me. People that manage these things. But if management ain't managing, guess what we do? We'll manage it for you. All right. Anyway, so that's a little bit about my life. So there's that. Okay. Well, guys, if y'all are still out there and if you have been rocking with me, I appreciate y'all. I don't know as far as Twitch is concerned. I'm not sure like who's on. Usually it was a little live the last two nights. So I guess it's kind of quiet tonight unless somebody is watching, but they're not really, actually saying anything. But apparently there's always one person is on X. I don't know what it is. I think it's like some bot or something that is just watching. It has to be, unless somebody is actually watching on X. And then one on Twitch. Nobody on YouTube, of course. Ain't nobody gonna get no love on YouTube. Not like that, at least. And yeah. All right. So let me take off this ticker. So we've taken a look at a few things. We've taken a look at a case study today, focusing on Spotify and their strategy to becoming becoming dominant in the audio industry. We've taken a look at the 16 personalities assessment. You took a look at my own profile online. Would that be considered a leak, y'all? We've seen it around leak. I don't know. Maybe is that a leak? Yeah, maybe it is. And what else did we take a look at? I think those are the two things that we took a look at. I'm going to show this to you guys again. GearCompass.com. Listen, it's free. It's not mine. This is like, it's not an ad. I'm just telling you all that I think that it's worth taking a look at. As a matter of fact, this is what it looks like. It looks like this. You go into it's just like this. Like you start focusing on 2024. Like you do some reflection. Like I think the first 1 or 2 pages, they're saying go week by week and any major milestones, events, things, write it down. Apparently they've been doing this since 2012. I didn't even know that they were around since 2012. That's crazy. But I used to use with the full focus planner, right? And then you've got, after you reflect on 2024, you then start planning in 2020, 2025. All right. I wonder if they got like some samples to show you what it looks like. No, probably not. Maybe I can download it so that you can actually see it. I already downloaded it before. So this is going to be like a re-download. Oh, whoops, hold on. Large workbook, small booklet, digital. Maybe it should be like that. Yeah. Play around with like how what your the size and everything should look like. All right. It should or would end up looking like, let me see if I can, looking like this. Let's see. Where is it? Okay. I think I have to like reshare. I have to reshare my screen so that you guys can see like the actual, let's see. I'm going to share the window. Where is it? There it is. Okay. So it looks like this. I have this in my Supernote digital notebook. So it looks like this. And then hey, what is this? The booklet that helps you reflect on the past year, plan for the next one. And if you do it digitally, just need to type it out, or a pen or pencil. I use like one of those digital pens. And can I do this in a group? Of course you can. All right. And this is what it looks like, y'all. First, You go through this. This was a lot. This right here was a lot of work. Week by week, going through the calendar. But there's so much that I forgot about, but because I had it in my calendar, I'm grateful that I did. Even trips and stuff, because Google, what they do is like, if it's tied to your Gmail account, like it'll automatically put it in the calendar for you. So, which is pretty cool. But then you look at the past year. What was your last year about? So after you do the week by week on the previous page, this gets a little bit easier to do. You can even go back to the previous page so that you can start filling out some of these things, which is really good. Okay. And then the next one is writing down. These are like superlatives, right? The wisest decision that I made in 2024, the biggest lesson that I learned, the biggest risk that I took. For me, because it was superlatives, that's what made it more difficult for me, because I had to choose one thing, right? We're talking about making decisions, right? Just choose the one thing. So I started just writing it down, and if my mind changed, or if I remembered something else, then I'd update it, and that's okay. All right. But this is just to get you to really start thinking about your year a little bit more deeply. And so, additional superlatives. What are you most proud of? Who are the 3 people who influenced you? Who are the 3 people that you influenced the most? And then we get to best moments. This one, I believe you have to draw. Yeah, you have to draw how you felt, some of the most memorable, joyful moments of your year. Who was there with you? What were you doing? That's a fun one. And then you get to the 3 biggest accomplishments. Once again, superlatives. Your 3 biggest challenges. Forgiveness. Now they say here, listen, you may not necessarily be ready to forgive, but at least you start writing down things that made you feel a certain way, or if you were angry with yourself, and things that that still need to be forgiven. Major, major, major. Okay. Then there's letting go, past year in 3 words. So once again, making it very pointed with these superlatives, and just like only 3 words you can use. What would those 3 words be? And then you focus on 2025. You can see this is 20 pages, and you're spending 13 of those pages focusing on what you've learned before. I think that's that's genius, because you are now kind of sharpening the axe, so that you can now start looking at what would it look like? Why will it be great? What will happen in an ideal world? You're taking the same from 2024. Now you're putting in like a fresh sheet of what will this year be about. Some of it can be the same, right? So anyway, I think it's worth taking a stab at, even if you don't finish the whole thing. I think it's worth doing. All right. So that is the year compass, if you are wondering, what that looks like. All right. Okay, y'all, listen, it's been great. This particular stream is not going to be as long. I think as I do this, it's probably going to get a little bit longer as we go along. But another thing, I want to give a shout out to RK3, Robert Kennedy III. He had a post on LinkedIn that talked about how, there are people that are out there. Hell, I might have even been one of them. People out there that are kind of like pushing you to, as we're talking about like the planning the year ahead and all of that. It's like, yo, listen, it's day 5. How come you haven't done anything yet? Now, if I have been that person, please, I apologize. I'm not trying to put pressure on y'all like that. What I do know is that quite a few high achievers, because I've seen it, especially in LinkedIn, I've seen it where they haven't fully planned out their year just yet. Mind you, they're the ones that have always done it, and before the year begins, like they are that person. So but even for me, like it's not fully materialized just yet for me, but I do have an idea based on the original planning that I've done. I have an original planner, what I want to do, but now I want to go more in depth using this one that I just showed you. But at the end of the day, it really looks like, even though as high achievers, we are not, we don't have all of our ducks in a sense in a row. We don't know exactly like pinpointing specifically what's actually going to happen. We have a holistic view and optimistic outlook on what 2025 is, which is amazing. And we have still been showing up for ourselves. So it's not like we've been stagnant. It's not like we're not just doing anything. We're still showing up on day 5. We're still showing up, but what we've been doing is we have been not stressing. It's not been stress over, I got to get it done. I got to get this thing done. I got to finish it. We're not stressing, it's going to get done. It's only January 5th. So I want to for those of you that are high achievers that are typically stressed over this thing, it's going to get done. Now, for those of you that probably have never done this before, get your shit together and get it done. All right. Some of y'all need, it's the 5th. Get it done. All right. But for those of y'all that ain't really, relax. Because you do it every year. You plan every year. You knock it down every year. Peace of mind. But for those of you that have never done this, I'm gonna light a fire under you. Get her done. All right. Okay, y'all. I leave you with these words of encouragement as the new week begins. You got this. You got this. All right, y'all.